Shabbos, everybody. We are Sue and Bill Lasser. We are thrilled to have a minion. How wonderful. Oh, okay. Is that better? Okay. All right. Not too much. Okay. What I said was, welcome, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. We are thrilled to have a minion. It's good to see everybody. Happy New Year. Jimmy, we're so glad you're here and with your family, and our condolences. We're here. And I understand from David that the candles have been blessed as well as lit. So, what? Oh. I'm talking to the mic. And hello, everybody in video land.
Can I say one thing real quick? I've said this before, but it was quite a while ago, but there's a story in Elie Wiesel's book, The Gates of the Forest, in which at the very beginning, it's a frontispiece of the book or prelude to the book, in which he describes a rabbi who had a special prayer, sung in a special melody, I'm kind of paraphrasing, and he went to a special place in the forest. And there's a lot of Hasidic stories like that, and one of them is a rabbi who used to say these special prayers in Yom Kippur, and then he gets sick, and somebody else has to take over, and he prays to God, and he says, I don't know, the prayer, I don't know the special melody, so I'm just going to say all the letters of the Hebrew alphabet, and you can put them together the right way. So if anything doesn't go as planned for us, God will put it together in the right order for us.
Well done. All right, so please turn to page.
Do you want to do this part of it? Announce the pages?
What?
Do you want me to announce the pages?
Okay. Please turn to page 4 at the bottom for Shalom Aleichem, where we welcome the angels of Shabbat.
It's page 5.
Page 5. Oops, I'm sorry. See, there we go. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Eyon, Melech, Malachei HaMelechim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bachem Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Eyon. Melech, Malachei HaMelechim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu Nilei Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Eyon. Melech, Malachei HaMelechim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Zeichem Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Eyon. Melech, Malachei HaMelechim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Please turn to page 21, and if you would rise if you're able to do so.
Mismar David, Avul Adonai b'nei Elim, Avul Adonai kavod va'oz, Avul Adonai kavod shemo, Yishtachavu Adonai b'hadrat kodesh, Kol Adonai amayim, El HaKavod Hirim Adonai Amayim. Adonai Bakoch, Kol Adonai Behadar, Kol Adonai Shover Arazim, Vaishaber Adonai et Arsei Havanun, Vayakidem Kimo Ekev Levanon Vesirion Kimo Ven Re'imim, Kol Adonai Chatzev Lavotesh, Kol Adonai Echad Midbar, Achil Adonai Midbar Kadesh, Kol Adonai Echad Elayarut, Vayechasaf Yaror, Uvechelo Kulo, Kulo Omer, Kulo Omer Kavod, Adonai Lama Yashav, Vayeshev Adonai Melech Leolam, Adonai Yos V'Yamoitin, Adonai Yevarech et Amo V'Shalom.
Chadodi is on page 23, and
We'll do the first two and the last verse on 25. Everybody is welcome to be seated. We stand for the very last verse on 25 as we welcome the Shabbat Queen or Shabbat Bride, and welcome her into our hearts as well as into our synagogue. Echadodi likrat kala p'nei Shabbat nekabela, Echadodi likrat kala p'nei Shabbat nekabela, Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Ishmianu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad, Ushmo echad, L'shemu tiferet v'litila, L'chadodi likrat kala, P'nei Shabbat nikabla, Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nilcha, Ki mikor habracha, Merosh mikerem nesucha, Sof ma'aseh b'machshavat tefila, Lechadodi likrat kala, P'nei Shabbat nikabla. Please rise and turn to 25. Bohi v'shalom ateret bala, Gam b'simcha v'tzala, Tochem unei am segula, Bohi chala, Lechadodi likrat kala, P'nei Shabbat nikabla. David, you make a really cute Shabbat queen. Yes, please be seated, everybody. And we turn to the Psalm for Shabbat on page 27. Tov lehodot l'Adonai, Tov lehodot l'Adonai, Ulesamer good to thank you, Adonai, and sing to your name most high. Okay, please turn to page 28 for Tzadi Katamar. Tzadi Katamar yifrach ke'eres bavanon yizkeh shetulim beveit Adonai bechatzrut Eloheinu yafrichu od yenuvon b'se'eva deshenim v'rananim yiyu b'hagid ki asher Adonai tzuri v'lo avelatabo. We'll turn to page 30 for Mourner's Kaddish. All of those in mourning or observing Yartzeit, please rise. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah v'yalma tivra kirutev yamlich malchuteh b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'yimeru Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach li'olam umei omaya Yitbarach v'yishabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yithalal shemei rekudsha brichu le'elam min kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran v'yalma v'imru amen Yehi shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen Oseh shalom b'ramav hu ya'aseh shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Please be seated. And now I invite you to listen to the Josh presented by Dr. William Lasser.
I have a handout. All right. So whenever Sue leads services and I try to help, she always asks me if I'll do a Devar Torah. And it being between semesters, I was reading through the Torah portion for tomorrow, which is the very last book, the conclusion of the book of Genesis. And in the last chapter of the book of Genesis, there is a prayer, which in your handout is on the second and third page, but don't read it yet. And that prayer is the blessings of, well, really the blessings that Jacob gives as he's dying to his children. And as I was reading it, I noticed a few things that just struck me, and I ended up going through a very deep dive on the subject I'm about to talk about. But before I do that, I'd like you to look at the two pictures on the front page and tell me what you think you see there, or anything you notice there. Sorry? I'm looking at because I can't hear. It's the tribes of Israel. Yeah, okay, good. It's the tribes of Israel. Excellent. And the tribes of Israel are named for? for the most part, the sons of Jacob, right? The daughter is left out, and Joseph's share is, because Joseph is such a major figure, Joseph's share actually saves his family and gets them to Egypt, which sets up the whole Exodus and eventually revelation of the Torah and everything else. Joseph gets 2 shares, or his children get a share each, a full share each, not a half share. Okay, that's good. What else? It looks like a zodiac, and there's a funny reason why it looks like a zodiac, and that is because it is a zodiac. Yes, absolutely. It's pictures of 2 zodiacs, actually. The top one, the full picture, and then from a different place, one sort of close-up of the second on the bottom. And these actually come from synagogues, which, does that strike anybody as strange? That these are decorative objects in the synagogue? If you look around our synagogue, which is kind of traditional for, or at least typical of the way modern synagogues look, do you see anything like this? Nothing, right? It's very undecorated. Yeah, Dave. Yeah, we don't do that, or at least we don't think we do that. And right, it looks like a person down there in the center and elsewhere too. And these are seem to be graven images, right? They seem to violate the rules, and they also represent, although in a much more distant way, they reflect the tradition of the zodiac that goes back to the Assyrians and Babylonians. That's actually where the Jews picked it up during the Babylonian exodus, exile, sorry, the Babylonian exile. And then eventually that was picked up too by the Greeks, and then it was picked up by Christians, and Jews sort of made their peace with it because, or the rabbis made their peace with it, because it was a very popular thing. And so they decided, rather than fight it, they kind of absorbed it into the Jewish tradition, and it figures very prominently in a lot of, in the Talmud, and then also, for example, in the Zohar and other sort of mystic literature of the Jews. Technically, it's not, it's traditionally not done, like in modern times. The first one at the top is from a synagogue in northern Israel that was built between the 3rd and 6th centuries, Common Era, when this was very typical of the way things were done. And the second is from a still existing synagogue in Poland that was built in the 17th century, and then it was renovated in the 19th century and somehow miraculously saved in the 20th century. So it's an older style, but the Talmud makes very clear that it is not illegal. It's not against the laws, the religious laws of the Torah, because we are not worshiping any of these zodiac signs. We're not asking them for anything. That's one reason. Another reason is that the symbiology of this, which is different from the zodiacs of the Babylonians and others, is that figure in the center is the sun. It's a personification of the sun. So Helios would be the Greek god of the sun. There were every ancient peoples had their god of the sun, but this is not a god. This is a sort of it's a personification of the sun, but as a physical object. And you notice that it is interpreted by the rabbis as representing God's supervision of the universe, but through these heavenly bodies simply are sort of tools of God. They're not gods themselves, but they were gods in the ancient formulation. So there's a kind of technical permission, right? Because it's sort of just, they create rules in a way in the Talmud that allow for this, and they make it very clear that the stars do not sort of control things, but they reflect the will of God and the order of God. So when we say Mazel Tov, or when we say to a bar mitzvah, a bride and groom, we sing the song Siman Tov and Mazel Tov, that actually means may you have a good sign, a sign, meaning an astrological sign, And Mazel Tov means may you have a good star or good stars. So these clearly reflect a tradition in which the stars are sort of clues to our fortune, but they themselves reflect God. They don't do it themselves. And that's sort of technically why it's there. Now, why in this Torah portion do I bring that up? Because as I said, in the blessing of Jacob to his children, and you can read it as you wish, but if you turn to the table that I put on the, on the table, which is on the last page of the very last page of the handout, you will notice that in the blessings of the 12 tribes of Israel, the reflection of the horoscope or of the zodiac, better I should say the zodiac, is very, very clear. And this is the order of, this table presents the order of the children of Jacob in order of birth. And it also represents the calendar of the year, starting with the spring, starting with Aries, which is the ram, and that's in the springtime, because that was the original beginning of the year. It did not begin with Rosh Hashanah, it began in April. And notice a very interesting thing about Aries and April. Good, that's perfect, yeah. A hint, it's a holiday that happens in April, usually, in the month of Nisan. That's how they Passover, right? The Passover has a major figure of the Paschal Lamb, right? And here's Aries, the ram. So there's associations sort of all over the place. And in the last column, you'll see sort of, I'll explain in a moment, the sort of broader symbolic meanings of these zodiac signs. And in the middle is quotes from Genesis 49, which will associate the blessings of Jacob with these zodiac signs. So, for example, Reuben is my firstborn son. That's the part of the quote. He is the first of my vigor, but also reckless. And that reflects the birth, right? First birth, first shoots of leaves in the spring, which is when Aries takes place. And also the fact that in the sort of zodiac sense, spring, they mark the what they call the stable or fixed signs of the zodiac are when things aren't changing much, like the middle of summer, the middle of spring, the middle of winter, the middle of fall. And the first one is sort of leading into spring, and so it's like restless. Right? So you get all these zodiac references. So previous to that, I'll just explain real quick like the science of this, because there's a very important thing to understand about the Babylonians and Assyrians before them and their use or invention of the zodiac, which is it was to us and to them, it had a quality even of kind of magic, divination, omens. And yet it was also very much part of how they figured out the calendar, and particularly the agricultural calendar. And so in a way, it was science. It was not science separated from religion, because they believed sort of fundamentally that they're gods, and they had all bunches of them, but that the gods controlled everything. And therefore, they couldn't separate science or anything else from that religious connotation. But at the same time, they also used it, they figured out sort of the origins of modern astronomy from the what then split off, astrology and astronomy kind of in the Middle Ages, split off in two very different directions. And basically, I'm not going to go into any detail on this, but if you look at the picture, there's a white dot in the center under Aries, and that's the position of the sun. This is from a website that allowed you to kind of click through the months. And the Babylonians are really the Assyrians, but the Babylonians sort of, they took this sort of more primitive version and refined it. They came up with the idea that the circle, that the sun circled around the earth, because they were wrong about that, but that took a long time for that to be acknowledged and discovered. But if you think of the earth as being at the center, and the sun is revolving around it, it goes through each month a key constellation. And from those constellations, if you look, for example, at Taurus, you can kind of see the horns of a bull. And so they found these depictions the way we would look at the Big Dipper and see a dipper or whatever. They're not as literal as the Big Dipper. They're not connect the dots in quite the same way, but they saw images. And those images they translated into gods, and those gods they put in charge of 1/12 of the year. And so they figured out a 360-degree circle with roughly 30 degrees of the circle for each of the 12 signs of the zodiac in their original version. And of course, the year was 365 days, and so they could sort of associate each of those signs of the zodiac with a month, and they could also associate each of those with the attributes of the gods and also the attributes of the calendar. And this is really the origins of how they figured out the calendar. And in fact, the Jewish months are Hebrew versions of the Babylonian months. So there are Babylonian months called Nisan. I mean, it's all right there. So I want to just say just a couple more things, which is, number one, this is not literal because the blessings of Jacob and the division of the tribes of Israel reflects both a historical tradition as it evolves over time, and oral history, and it's written down at different periods of time. And clearly, the writers of this section, whether God or anyone else, was aware of the zodiac. I mean, the matches are, in many of the cases of the brothers, is too clear to be a coincidence. But at the same time, they're not perfect. And what people then do is they take this passage and they try in a way to force the zodiac signs onto it. Like 6 or 7 of them are really clear, and then there's different versions, because it's not a literal indication of what the zodiac is supposed to be. It's rather reflects, again, an old tradition, an attempt to kind of put that into the context of whatever the time it was written. And then you'll find in all these depictions later attempts to sort of bring the Jewish zodiac more into line with the Greek zodiac, and so it's not literal. So, for example, when I read it the first time, I thought that the sign for Sagittarius should probably reflect the archer, but it really doesn't. Instead, it reflects the sense, which is again the Babylon goes back to Babylonia. That in the month of Sagittarius, basically, or in that part of the cycle, there will be abundance in Sagittarius. It's sort of after the harvest, right, in the fall. So it's not literal. And in fact, Archer is mentioned elsewhere, so you can kind of find different ones. And I even found one attempt to map Virgo, which means maiden, it's the same root as virgin, onto Dinah, or Dinah, who's the sister here. And the idea is they tried to pair they put the Gemini twins, if you go up at the top and you look at Taurus, it says Simeon and Levi are brothers. And so, and then under Levi, it says, I will divide them, but they're taken together. So some people say there's only 11 signs in this passage from Genesis 49, right? There's the passages for the 10 brothers, that makes 10. Then the 2 brothers together, Simeon and Levi, make 11. And then where's the 12th? Well, the 12th is Dinah, who they put under Virgo, right? And that's clearly a back formation from much later on. So we have vestiges of this still, as I said, in some of our traditions, like Mazel Tov, and in some of the decorations from earlier ages. But certainly in the 19th century, when that Polish synagogue was done, it was considered perfectly okay to decorate it all over the place. Some synagogues today are more graphically oriented than most of the ones that we see. So it's a very, very old tradition going back something more than 3,000 years, or close to 3,000 years at least, and yet that has evolved, and the Jews sort of incorporated it into our traditions. So I will stop there unless there's any questions or comments or any thoughts. Well, everyone should have good signs and stars for 2026.
All right. We are at Baruch Hu. Please rise and turn to page 39A. Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamorach. Baruch Adonai Hamorach le'olam va'ed. Please be seated. And then at the bottom in the English, let's read together. Baruch atah Adonai, our God, sovereign of time and space, whose word brings the evening dusk, whose wisdom opens the gates of dawn, whose understanding changes the day's division, whose will sets the succession of seasons and arranges the stars in their places in the sky, who creates day and night, who rules light before darkness and darkness from light, who makes day pass into night, who distinguishes day from night. Adonai Tzevaot is your name, living and ever-present God. May your rule be with us forever and ever. Baruch atah Adonai, who brings each evening's dusk. And then on page 40, if you'll turn to Ahavat Olam. Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha Avta, Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Utar limadeta. Aken Adonai Eloheinu, V'shachveinu v'kumeinu, Nasiach b'chukecha, V'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, U'v'mitzvotecha, le'olam va'ed. Ki hem chayenu v'yorach yameinu, v'yorach yameinu, u'bahem neker yamam v'layla, yamam v'layla. V'achavatecha al tavsir mimenu li'olamim, Baruch atah Adonai. And we turn the page to 41 for Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavecha u'v'chol nefshecha u'v'chol meutecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anuchi metzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha b'derech ובשכבך ובקומך, ובשעתה מאוד על ידיך, והיו תותפות בעיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובפי שעריך. And we'll turn to page 44 for Michamocha. Michamocha ba'elim Adonai, Michamocha nedar b'kodesh, norah tehilot osei מלכותך ראובניך, וכהים לפני משה, זה לי ענו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר כי פדרנו את יעקב, וגואלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל. And the next page, on 45, we can read the English. You want to read the English?
Please read with me. Allow us, Adonai, our God, to sleep peacefully. Awaken us to life, O Sovereign. Spread over us your canopy of peace. Restore us with your good counsel, and save us for the sake of your name. Shield us. Remove from us enemies, pestilence, sword, starvation, and sorrow. Remove the evil forces that surround us. Shelter us in the shadow of your wings, for you, God, watch over and deliver us. And you, God, are sovereign, merciful, and compassionate. Ensure our going and coming for life and peace, now and forever. May you spread over us your canopy of peace, Baruch atah Adonai, who spreads the canopy of peace over us, over all the people, Israel, and over Jerusalem.
Please rise for V'shamru. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל עד העולם, עד העולם. Odili olam, v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני, oh, I did that one, sorry. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Yikadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah,
V'yamad yivrachirutei, v'yamlich machutei, b'chayechon, u'v'yomechon, u'v'chayedecha beit Yisrael, Bayagala, u'v'zman kariv, v'imeru, Amen. Yeheshmei Rava Mevorach, Yalam Olam Me'amaya, Yiparach, Yiparach, V'yishtabach, V'yipar, V'yimam, V'yitnaseh, V'yitadar, V'yitaleh, V'yitalal, Shemei Kudusha, B'richu, Leila Minko, Birchata V'shirata, Tushbechata V'nechemata, Da'amiran Yama, V'meru.
We remain standing, those who can, for the silent Amida, which begins on page 47 and runs through page 51. Feel free to be seated as you complete your on page 51. Shalom Rabba Yisrael Hasim Le'olam. Shalom Rabba Yisrael Hasim Le'olam. Ki atahu melech adon Lechol hashalom, ki atahu melech adon, lechol hashalom, shalom rav Yisrael amcha, tasim le'olam. Shalom rav Yisrael amcha, tasim le'olam, tasim le'olam, tasim le'olam. And now I have to ask you to rise again, if you are able, and turn to page 53. Oh, I have to remind you ask you to rise again and turn to page 53. Bill said you can't hear me. Sorry about that. At the bottom of the page, Magen Avot. Magen Avot bidvaro, mechaye mitim b'mamaro, ha'el hakadosh she'en kamohu, המניח לעמו ביום שבת קדשו, כי פעם רצה להניח להם, כי פעם רצה להניח להם, לפניו נבון ביראה ופחד, ונודה לשמו בחיון תמיד בין הברכות. אל ההודעות אדון השלום, מקדש השבת ומברך שבי, ומניח קדושה ויעמדו שני עוני, זכר למעשה בראשית. Kaddish Shalem can be found on page 54.
יקרא ויקרא שמי רבה, יאמר דברכי רטה, בימליך מחלתה, בחייכון בימיכון, בחיי לכל בית ישראל, בעגל בזמן קריב ויאמרו, אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, יעלם עולם מימיה, יתברך. יתברך וישתבח, יתברך ויתמרון ויתנשא, ויתדע ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי דקודשה, בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תשבחתה ונחמתה, דמירם בימה ויאמרו, אמן. תתקבל צלתנו ותהון, בכל ישראל, קדם ובהון, ושמיה ויאמרו, אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו, אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום, עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו,
This week on Mishaberach list includes
There are many papers.
yes, thank you, Carol. Okay. Shulamit Bat Gittel, Marjorie Morstein, Barbara Feingold, Harriet Siegel, Nadine Hyman, Gary Kramer, Francis Haber, Suzanne Gott, Joan Klepp, Yisraela Batzipora, Susan Olar, Megan Katigno, Natalie Kogan, Bernie Rice, Devora Bat Avraham Vasara, Esther Weiner, Hannah Lipman, Peter Jacobson, Elizabeth Alfieri, Joel Lowenstern, Bonnie Carlton, Rivka Markowitz, Victor Alfieri, Arlene Hoffman, Bruce Fine, Rosa Burgos, Don Siegel, Atira Batavora, Jeffrey Siegel's father, our rabbi's husband's father, who is out of ICU and doing better, and Paul Goldwasser. Are there any other names that we should mention? Anybody want to add to our list? Yes, Lise. George Frankel. Anybody else?
Judy Lesser.
And Judy Lasser. And my sister-in-law has COVID,
But getting better.
but getting better. She is getting better, but as Rabbi Marco once said about adding someone to the Mishaberach list, it couldn't hurt. And now we turn to our prayer for the sick on page 173, way up in the left hand, prayer for healing. This is our Debbie Friedman melody. Yishaberach Avotenu V'kor habracha le'imotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach imutenu Mikol habracha avutenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Blessing of healing all of those who are sick, and blessing of strength and courage to those who care for them. And we have reached page 56, Aleinu. As it is written in your Torah, Adonai will reign forever and ever. seated. Unless you're saying Mortar's Cottage. Mortar's Cottage may be found on page 58. All those in mourning or who are observing a yard site, please rise if you are able. Yitgadal v'yitkadash meraba. Yamad divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon uv'yamechon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uv'izman kari v'imru min. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevorach V'Olam Umei Omaya Yitbarach V'Yishtabach V'Yitpa'ar V'Yitramam V'Yitnaseh V'Yitadar V'Yitalev V'Yithalal Shemei D'Kudsha B'Chu Le'ela Min Kol Birchata V'Shirata Tushbechata V'Nechemata Da'amiran B'Oma V'Imru Amen Yehi Shlomo Rabba Min Shemaya V'chaim aleinu v'yalkol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'yalkol Yisrael v'imru Amen. You may be seated. Linda, any announcements?
Stand close to the microphone. This is a challenge in both height and yeah. All right, it's coming to me. Can we hear me? Cool. Okay, let's see here. Sorry, I've had a recent change in my vision, so I have to figure where I need to hold the paper now. Apparently, I'm getting older, according to the eye doctor. Or I am old. It was something like that. All right, religious school is on winter break until Sunday, January 11th. School will begin at 9 a.m. and Torah begins at 10:15 a.m. Don't forget to sign up for this year's Southern Schmooze, which is February 27th through March 1st at Ramad Drum. It is a wonderful way to get to know your fellow CBI congregants and celebrate Shabbat with others from small Jewish congregations in the South. See the e-news or website for the link to register. If you need more info or are planning to attend, please let Rabbi Cohen know. Nominal financial help is available. Join CBI for Age to Perfection. Ageless, maybe I should go with this. Ageless Grace on Thursday, January 8th at 11 a.m. Exercise for the body and brain, followed by a light lunch. The cost is $5 payable at the door. And then join Sisterhood for Sisterhood Shabbat on Saturday, January 10th. More information to come in the January bulletin. We have some save the dates. Join the Social Action Committee members for a Meals on Wheels mitzvah. That is Tuesday, January 20th at 7:45 a.m. at the Meals on Wheels Greenville. Volunteers will assist by assembling meals to be delivered to homebound clients. To volunteer, please contact Jeff Gaines or Allison Duckworth. And weekly reminders. Intermediate Hebrew with Fred Leffert meets Sundays at 9:30 a.m. There is no Home Megillah class with Rabbi Cohen this Sunday. Torah study class with Fred Leffert is Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. on Zoom. And then please see the CBI website, newsletter, or bulletin for more information on all these programs. We have some anniversaries, Barbara and Richard Feingold on the 5th and the 6th, Sue and Steve Arkin. And a couple birthdays on the 3rd. We've got Stephanie Alfieri and Erica Zaglin. And then Ethan Kadar on the 4th. I think that's where we're at. That's it. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Thank you, Linda.
All right. Adonam can be found on page 211. Adon Olam Asher Malach, B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra, Le'ed Naso B'chefzo Kol, Asai Melech, Shemo Nikra, Ve'acharei Kichlat HaKol, Levado Yiloch Ne'ora, Ve'hu Haya, Ve'hu Hover, Ve'hu Yiyeh B'Tifarah, Ve'hu Echad V'Yein Sheni, L'hamshilo L'hachbiro, V'li Reshit V'li Tachlit, V'lo Ha'us V'Hamisra, V'hu Eli V'chai Goali, V'shor Chavli V'Yetzara, V'hu Nisi U'Manosli, Menat Kosi B'Yom Ekra, V'Yado Afkid Ruchi, V'Yet Ishon V'Ayira, V'Yim Ruchi K'V'Yati, Adonai li V'lo Ira. Shabbat Shalom, y'all. Oh, yes, excuse me. Please join us. Join us in the social hall. Kiddush this evening is sponsored by. There's nobody listed? Okay. Okay, sorry about that. It's sponsored by Congregation Beth Israel. Thank you, one and all.